The Immortal Case. That evening, Boss James went to a restaurant to have dinner with police officers. Some young police officers have long heard of James and have handled many strange cases. This time, meeting the boss and eating together is extremely exciting. A police officer spoke up to Boss James. "Boss, we heard that you have handled a lot of strange cases. Tell us a few." James's calm face frowned slightly, showing that he didn't want to talk. "Hurry up and eat quickly. You guys are too busy." Michael went to eat with Boss James, also supported the opinion of young police officers. He turned to his close boss and said, "Boss James, first also want to hear from you about some strange cases." But the more serious James got, the more he turned to blame Michael. "Michael, since when have you been so talkative?" Boss James suddenly laughed and teased the captain that he should be lucky that he didn't take on the case. The whole team was bewildered and didn't know why the boss said that. It was on a break, so Boss James also told the team about that compelling case. That day was like every other day at the police station. There were hardly any severe cases, so everyone was playing cards together. Suddenly the phone rang. Everyone also told each other that hopefully, it's not the phone to report the crime. But when the policeman answered the phone, the caller's announcement from the other end startled the officer. This policeman was Oliver, the vice captain of the second team. Because Michael was on leave, his team would be on duty that day. Seeing Oliver's panicked expression, his teammates also wanted to know what was going on. Oliver sighed. It was a murder case, someone died. His face looked grave, and he told his teammates to get ready to go to the scene. At that point, the teammate still didn't know what was going on, so he asked for more details. However, Officer Oliver's face suddenly turned grave. He just said that there was a murder and they needed to leave immediately. The whole team started in the afternoon, but they had not yet arrived at night because the scene was a suburban house. The car drove a bit more when it was already dark, and they reached the place where someone reported a murder. That was a spacious house, and around it were also large and beautiful houses, but there was no sign of anyone. They did not know who reported the crime. Mr. Oliver and his teammates held flashlights in their hands because this area had almost no streetlights. In the past, this area was a place for nobility, but many things happened, so people abandoned it. Many of these houses were even abandoned. Mr. Oliver felt very curious, not knowing who reported the crime. The scene seemed so quiet as if nothing happened in this area. He double-checked. It was house number 27, as the reporter said on the phone. Mr. Oliver's teammate tried to open the main door, but it seemed to be locked. Mr. Oliver said that they couldn't just break in like that and couldn't break the door and affect the surroundings. They discovered a small window, located not very high up. So his comrade decided to climb inside through this small window. It was pitch black inside, so his teammate couldn't see anything. Below, Mr. Oliver still reminded his teammate to be careful, and after entering, he quickly opened the main door. The policeman slowly climbed inside, but everything was too dark. Suddenly he slipped and fell to the floor. Beneath his feet was something very slippery, so he couldn't support his feet. Suddenly he realized, on the floor was some very foul-smelling liquid. He quickly shined the flashlight on the hand he was leaning on the floor to see what it was. As soon as he shined the flashlight to look at it, he was amazed. There was fresh blood all over his hands at that time. Only now did he shine the light on the floor, which made him panic even more. The whole floor was smeared with blood. Blood was everywhere. Hearing the screams and the strong impact inside, Mr. Oliver was also highly alarmed. At this time, Oliver ordered the other policemen to break down the door immediately. They tried to kick and break the door, but the door was solid. It took more than a few minutes before they were able to break the lock and storm inside. When they got there, the four of them were surprised and a little scared. The floor was covered with fresh blood. It looked like murder just happened. The policemen were scared. There must have been a terrible murder here with such a large amount of blood. Suddenly, Mr. Oliver's teammate saw a door. There was also a lot of blood, so the team decided to go in there. Before going to the place, suddenly he saw a boy, running very fast, passed through the door. The policeman was amazed because there was a murder here. Why were there children running around like that? He suddenly raised the gun reflexively, just in case. Seeing that his comrades were on the defensive, Mr. Oliver rushed to see the situation. Officer Oliver ordered everyone to prepare to raid the inside of that room and then slowly move towards the door. But everything inside was perfectly normal. They shined the lights around to get a closer look at the room. That was just a standard room. There was no trace of a fight or blood here. Oliver ordered a search around the room to collect evidence. After searching for a while, Mr. Oliver suddenly saw a strange picture hanging on the wall. It was a family photo of a husband and wife and their twin sons, but the expressions on the people's faces in the picture were not happy. After looking around, there was no victim's body, so they decided to seal the scene first. The following day it was easier to investigate. The following day at Headquarters 268, Oliver held an emergency meeting. He let the person investigate that family and also knew the names of the family members. But the strange thing was that he did not find out who called to report the crime and where the victim's body was, so it was impossible to determine who the dead person was. That night, he was on duty as usual. The phone of crime reports rang again and again. Oliver answered the phone. It was the same voice from yesterday. After receiving the call, Mr. Oliver and a few teammates immediately returned to that house in the night. When they arrived, someone broke the seal and also opened the main door. The window didn't show any signs of breaking in, so the person didn't come in from the window. But the main door didn't show any signs of being vandalized, so how could he open it? Seeing that everything was too suspicious, Oliver told everyone to prepare their weapons if it was the culprit. They went inside and stayed alert because it was very dark inside, easy to ambush. The strange thing was that the blood on the floor had disappeared. Instead, there were only scratches as a fight happened. At this moment, the policeman suddenly heard a strange noise coming from behind. He immediately went back to check and saw a baby's tricycle rolling on the floor. When he turned around, it also stopped like it was looking at him. He found it odd, but Oliver urged him to go up to the inspection floor. The team began to slowly make their way upstairs to look. The house was pitch black, but the moon was bright enough for them to walk up the stairs. As soon as they got there, the policeman in the lead suddenly panicked, because the tricycle from earlier was rushing from upstairs towards them. They quickly ducked to the side so that the bike could plunge down the stairs. The bike went down very quickly and broke as someone pushed it down from above. At this point, they started to sweat because there was something scary about this house. But as policemen, they had to do their duty and went upstairs. But what was in front of them scared them even more. In front of them was a man, sitting neatly on a chair against the wall. Before they would react, the man disappeared right before their eyes. They were shocked as to what was going on. And the man from earlier looked a lot like the one in the family photo. The whole team was still bewildered when downstairs they heard footsteps walking on the wooden floor. They hurriedly looked down in fear that the perpetrator would return to the scene to check. But what they saw surprised them. Downstairs was a woman with 2 children, looking very similar to people in the other picture. Before they could be calm, the woman and 2 children turned and looked up at them, their faces covered in blood white, blood pouring out of their eyes and mouth, looking very scary. Before they could recover, the woman and 2 children had disappeared before their eyes. Suddenly, the policeman closest to the top fell again, causing the 3 of them to fall from the top of the stairs. Oliver and another teammate only had scratches on the skin. The policeman who walked first had suffered a severe head injury and was unconscious. Then they quickly left the house. Oliver also took his teammate to the hospital. Fortunately, he was okay. But when asked about the incident, why did he fall down like that, the policeman was still panicking to tell. Just when everyone was still looking at the other mother and son, the strange man appeared again right behind him. He reached out his hand to push the policeman because the policeman was so scared he fell down and pulled everyone to follow him. Hearing this, Oliver and his teammates looked at each other. They then rushed to the scene. At that time, people smashed a part of the house to search for the victim's body. As soon as Oliver arrived, he was amazed. There were many people around, but no one could see inside, except for the police. And what they had discovered on the floor made everyone in the team highly shocked. They stood still and pondered for a long time before the events in front of them. The bodies of the mother and 2 twin sons in the picture, as well as the souls they saw last night. They were soaked in a big pot and buried deeply in the ground. The strange thing was that their bodies didn't rot, they just looked like they were sleeping. So were the twins, but the pot was a bit small. How would all 3 of them fit in it? Oliver ordered their bodies to be brought back for forensic investigation to determine the cause of death. They quickly brought the bodies back to headquarters. According to the initial autopsy, someone stabbed them with a sharp knife, which resulted in their deaths. However, it was amazing how they didn't have any wounds on their bodies. It was like they healed on their own. The forensics team then showed Oliver the female victim's bone X-ray image. The victim's bones had many wounds, but it was showing signs of healing. After listening to the forensics, Oliver wondered, how did that happen? The forensic doctor said that he had also heard of a method of witchcraft that could bring the dead back to life. And the way the woman and 2 children were soaked in a large jug of water was for that purpose. Hearing this, Oliver also started to sweat because it was his first time encountering something like this. The forensic doctor said that he would continue to investigate. If there were any more clues, he would notify Mr. Oliver immediately. Then something strange happened. Oliver received an urgent call to the interrogation room. There was a suspicious man who asked to confess and asked the police to protect him. But for some reason, he seemed to be very cooperative with the police. He said he couldn't live in fear anymore. Only by going to prison would he be safe. Therefore he would tell everything. He was a thief. That day, he directed 3 more guys who decided to break into house number 27. Those 3 guys covered their faces, held knives, and burst into the house because they investigated that the house was usually only occupied by 3 people, the mother and her sons. With the mother's fierce resistance, they stabbed her to death. Then they also killed both boys. They took away all the money and jewelry available in the house. Just as they were about to escape, a man entered the house from outside. Seeing his wife and children die tragically, the husband was furious. 3 thieves rushed in to attack, but the husband beat them up. Then the husband stole the knife and killed them all. Blood filled the floor with blood like a sea of blood. That day, because he was the last thief standing guard outside, he was lucky to escape death, but then he was always haunted by the events of that day. Oliver asked about the husband's appearance. He described the husband's figure, and the unique feature was that there was a mole above the top of his eyebrow. Oliver asked him if he knew where the husband was. After his comrades were killed, he let people watch and knew the husband's area but did not dare to approach. According to the thief's instructions, the police came and searched around the area. This was a wild mountain area. After nearly a day of pursuit and scuffle, the police finally caught him. Because the husband was very dangerous, the resistance was very high, so the police carefully escorted him to the headquarters. Arriving at the police office, he was still very loose. He showed no fear in front of the police, making Oliver very angry. But in return, just his sinister smile and compelling answers. He admitted to all the murders to avenge his wife and children that day, but he seemed very happy about it. After the interrogation, the police brought him to the scene to get more evidence and reconstruct the scene. On the way past the prison, the husband saw the thief who was still alive. That day, the thief was scared and trembled when he looked at him. The husband just looked at him and gave him an evil smile. His eyes seemed like he wanted to eat the thief alive. Just a few minutes later, the thief did something terrible right in prison. He cut his own neck and wrists with broken bricks, bleeding to death. He died in a kneeling position as if he was confessing his crime and not closing his eyes. As for the husband, the police took him to the house where the murder took place. When he stood in front of the pot containing the bodies of the mother and sons, the police wanted him to reveal his motives for doing it. But in return, the husband just said it was a way for his wife and children to be revived and live by his side forever, and said the police didn't need to know too much about it. Right after that, the husband said that there was nothing left for him to stay here, he had had enough fun. With his attitude, Oliver was also surprised. And in an instant, the handcuffs were quickly removed by the husband. In the presence of all the police, he didn't use any tools. Despite the surrounding policemen pointing their guns at him, the husband remained calm as if nothing had happened. After that, the husband just looked at Oliver, and Mr. Oliver's whole body froze and couldn't move. In the presence of all the police, the husband leisurely went upstairs. Oliver and his teammates also chased after him and asked him to stop, but he didn't seem to care. He walked to the front of the wall and suddenly stopped. The policemen chased him, but there seemed to be an invisible wall stopping them. They couldn't believe their eyes, but it was true that there was something in front of them that couldn't go. At the same time, the husband suddenly put his hand on the wall. Suddenly, the wall turned into liquid. In an instant, he went through the wall like he was sinking into a puddle. The police couldn't give chase, so they shot at him. He disappeared into the wall, leaving only the bullet holes in the wall. After that, the policemen were able to approach. Oliver checked the wall. It was still as sturdy as usual, and the bullets were still digging deep into it. Suddenly the floor shook violently like an earthquake. In a split second, the police officers and Oliver were back at their old place, where the husband left the water pot with the bodies of the mother and sons. And that husband has disappeared since then. There was no way to investigate his whereabouts. Hearing Boss James talk about this, the whole team was shocked because they couldn't believe it happened. Boss James just smiled, left the table, and said that anything was possible in this world. Michael was very curious about the case, so he deliberately followed his boss to ask more about the woman's ghost and 2 children. Boss James just sighed and said that it's impossible to revive the dead, as the ghost of the woman who called the police, maybe she wanted to stop her husband. Witchcraft always had its downside. If people could be revived, they couldn't return to normal. Boss James also revealed that the mysterious man also had many thrilling anecdotes. He had terrifying abilities. It was best not to investigate him. At some point, he would tell Michael and the others more about him.